And that is the theme of this morning. That is the echo of today, which is Beloved, the song that Rafe just sang about, I am in love with you always, and you rush to me. So that is what our focus is. That's what our goal is. So we are exploring the book Emergence by Barbara Marx Hubbard. And we started it 2 weeks ago, and then we took off last week because we dedicated the tapestry to African spirituality. So we're picking that up. We have home groups that have begun. We have a group that meets here at Seattle Unity on Monday nights, led by Raimi and Dee Dee. So I want to just share with you briefly what the whole concept of the emergence is about, and this whole birth 2012 that we're hearing about. And the idea is that Barbara Marx Hubbard suggests is that we are awakening, that we are birthing the Christ consciousness. And what is the Christ consciousness? But it is the Spirit of God. It is the beloved that indwells each one of us and all around, right? And so her premise is that we are in the gestation phase, that we are still in the womb. And the date, whether it's that date or not, but December 22nd, 2012 is the date of the end of the Mayan calendar, and it was the date of this emergence, this birth that's happening in consciousness, this evolving of humans that is happening. One of the ideas is that we're evolving into angels, that we're evolving into awakened beings. And what does it look like to wake up? It means that we're open to the beloved, that we treat ourselves as if we are the beloved, that we treat one another as if we are the beloved, that we anchor in those moments of oneness and of loving kindness and compassion, that we step outside of our own perception and we are able to see things from other people's perspective. So the idea of emergence is that we need to stop and to recognize, own, and anchor our own spiritual experiences, and to make them part of who we are in our daily lives and bring them into our work and our families, our communities, and our neighborhoods. So we are, and so I think it's great that we have all these babies here today, because it's almost a metaphor for the birthing, right? We're birthing into this new consciousness and this new awareness. And I feel like we are moving forward, that we are waking up. And I think the fact that the gay marriage was approved in Washington is a symbol of that. It shows that we are waking up, that our hearts are large, that we're letting go of perceptions and stepping into divine love. So I want to speak for a moment about the difference between spirituality and religion, because the truth is we can be spiritual but not religious, and we can be religious but not necessarily spiritual. And spirituality is about connecting to God, whatever you want to call God, whether it's the universe, the beloved, the divine one, Jesus, Buddha, Christ, whatever that may be. We connect with that. That is spirituality. It's a feeling, it's an experience, it's a way that we live. And religion is a door through which we can enter spirituality. So you'll notice that we have all the tapestries, and it was so fun when we dedicated that one last week. And what I see that religion is it is a doorway into the practice of how to find God, and how to define God. So as we look at the different tapestries, it's as if we have different windows or different doorways into the perception of the universe. And so it helps us to define that. And it gives us practices to join in to experience that oneness. And yet, there's a common thread that goes throughout all of them. The common thread is that we are one. The common thread is that love is all that matters, that the beloved is all that is. It doesn't matter if it's Hinduism or Buddhism or African spirituality or Muslim or Judaism or Sikh, pagan, Native American, or Shinto. You know, it doesn't matter what the path is. There is a message. And what's cool about how we live today is that we have the teachers and the teachings around us to help us birth this Christ consciousness. So 2 weeks ago when we began this process, we talked about the importance of creating sacred space, that the purpose of an outer sanctuary, such as this, a sanctuary, can help us to touch the inner sanctuary. And so what I encouraged us to do is, if we don't already have one, to create an inner sanctuary for ourselves. I mean, an outer sanctuary for ourselves so that it can touch into the inner sanctuary. So whether that be a whole room that you have in your house, or whether it be a chair, or whether it be a corner. But what happens is when we practice our spiritual practice, whether it be meditation or singing or whatever it may be, we spiritualize the atoms and the molecules in that space. And so that space then begins to welcome us in and say, come on in and connect to that presence of God. Because we need to tone down the noise that we live with in our lives, do we not? We need to tone it down and turn it down so that we can hear the whisper of God. Because as last week Elijah was looking for God and he didn't find him in the fire or the earthquake or the wind, he found him in the whisper. And that's one, I mean, not that God doesn't live in all those places, of course God does, but part of our training in the birthing of the Christ consciousness is to be aware of to be aware of the still small voice, whether it be a feeling, whether it be a dream, whether it be an intuition. It's how we nurture that relationship with Spirit. And the truth is that Jesus, as enlightened as he was, took a lot of time away from the crowds. When you read the scriptures, when you read the New Testament, it says over and over again, and Jesus left the crowds. And where did he go? He went to the mountaintop to pray, or to be alone, or to be in silence, or to talk to God. And then he goes back and he's teaching, and he's healing, and he's doing his thing. And then what does he do? He leaves the crowds, and he goes to the mountain. Metaphysically, the crowds always represent thoughts. So when our, and our thoughts can be mumbling and grumbling and ADD-ish and rah, 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 right? And so we leave the crowd, we leave our thoughts when we do spiritual practice. We leave the crowds, we go to the top of the mountain, which means we go to a higher, not just a higher consciousness, but we look at our lives from a higher perception, from a higher perspective. And I think that's one of the things that we do when we come together in community and in worship, in Sangha, that we come together and we sort of go up high someplace. We're in this sanctuary and we leave the world out there except to bless it. We call it in to bless it. Brain waves help us define deeper states of consciousness. So I'm sure many of you know this, but 4 brainwave states are beta, alpha, theta, and delta. So beta is where we spend most of our time. It's when we're awake, we're interacting, we're talking, we're moving around, we're operating machinery, we're doing whatever, right? And that's where we spend most of our time. And those brain waves are more like this. So when we move into alpha, it begins to slow down a little bit more. And when the brain waves start to slow down a little bit more, we turn our attention within. We begin to use our imaginations. We begin to listen to our intuition because it's like there's space. Now, the truth is that we can be in alpha when we're driving a car. Anybody ever done that? You find yourself at your destination and you're like, how did I do this anyway? I don't remember driving here. I don't remember turning here, but I got here. Or how many times have you gotten in the car and it automatically goes in a direction that you weren't intending to go? It's like, oh my God, I'm not going to work today. I was going to Costco. Forgot. The theta state is where we are in deep meditation and where we begin to sort of leave the body so that we don't necessarily feel it. You know, we're able to leave it and to set it aside. And then delta is the very deep, slow brain waves, which is where we go when we are in deep, deep sleep. The truth is that when we're thinking, we're expending energy. And so when we go to that deep place of sleep, it's like we're giving ourselves a rest and the body can regenerate. And that's why sleep is so important. You know, it's really great that it's dark so long now. There is good news in this. The truth is, if we just turn off our lights and go to bed early, you know, we can regenerate the body, we can rest, and we can heal. So we move in these different states of consciousness. We move from beta, which is awake, to alpha, which is where we start to slow down, to theta, which is where we're in a deep place of meditation, and finally delta. And so we sang earlier the song Jacob's Ladder. We're climbing Jacob's Ladder, yeah? And the story is that Jacob fell asleep, and in his dream there were angels going up and down a ladder. They were going from the earth to the heavens, and from the earth to the heavens. And so there was this connection that was being made with spirit. It also symbolizes the kundalini and the chakra energies waking up and coming out the top of the head. So again, we have all these metaphors about where are we going and who are we becoming. Charles Fillmore, the founder of Unity, the co-founder of Unity, said that, it's in your bulletin in the front, but something about, you know, if there's anything to this God stuff, if there's anything to this connecting with spirit, then I'm going to try it. I'm going to find out whether it's a fraud or not. I'm going to find out if this actually works. And so he would sit and he would be in silence every day, listen to what guidance he would receive, and then he would act on that. Salvador Dali also practiced being in the state of, you know, alpha and theta consciousness. And what he would do is eat a big meal and then have a big bowl in front of him on his lap and sit with 2 spoons. And then when he would fall asleep, he would drop the spoons and he'd wake up. And he would so he would catch himself in the place between alpha, where we start to fall asleep, to delta or theta, where we start to go in. So he would be in that place, or he would sit and he would have marbles in his hands and pie tins underneath his chair, so that when he fell asleep and his hands would open, he would wake up. So it was a trick for him to be in that state of consciousness, for him to be in that place. So this is all practice, right? This is all spiritual practice, and that's what we're talking about. Now, I have invited you, and I also want to, you know, this is like not something that's been practiced long ago. It's something that happens all the time. Paul McCartney said that he wrote yesterday, he woke up and he had the tune in his head. So he got up and he immediately played it on the piano and he got it so that he wouldn't forget it. But he didn't share it with anybody for a while because the song was so intact when he woke up that he was positive that somebody else had already recorded it. And he was playing it for John and the other guys, and he's like, okay, so do you guys know this song? And they'd go, no, never heard it. And he goes, no, I'm sure someone else has recorded it. And they're like, no, never heard it. And he called it initially Scrambled Eggs because he didn't really have a title for it. And so that's the kind of thing when we are in that state of consciousness, when we're in the alpha state, when we're in the delta, the theta state, we are open to genius. We are open to genius. We are open to creativity. We are open to oneness. We are open to receiving the beloved. Now, I have invited you to bring a journal with you to church. So how many of you have actually done that? Raise your hand if you have a journal with you. How many don't have a journal with you? So, okay. So I'm going to invite you to just start bringing a journal with you. We have them in the bookstore. Perhaps you have a favorite one. I want it to be your God journal because we have, you know, Neil Donald Walsh, conversations with God. The truth is, we all have our own conversations with God. We all have our own connection with God. We don't need to read someone else's conversations with God because we have our own. And I want to just engage us for a few minutes in the process of connecting through writing, through just being silent, because I know that we spend a lot of time in beta consciousness, that we spend a lot of time busy. There's so many things that we have to do, that when we come together in community, we may go, you know what, that's a great idea and I'm going to try it. And then we walk out the door and forget about it, right? It's like, oh yeah, I was going to do that, but hey, I don't have time. So what I want to do is I want to create a space here where we have the time and we have the space and we're connecting and listening to that spirit. So I know that some of you have journals, most of you don't. There is some paper and pencils, and don't worry about it. What I'd like you to do, I'm going to just walk you through a little piece here. If you haven't brought anything to write with, just sit with it and let it be inside of you. What we're doing is creating space to hear the whisper. We are welcoming and connecting to the presence of God, creating our own conversations. All right. So what I'd like you to do is just to turn your attention within for a moment, just to become still. And I'd like you to recall a time when you had an experience of God. Now, it could be what you call the universe, or the divine presence, or nature, or Jesus, or Buddha. Recall a time when you were absolutely positive that you were experiencing the presence of God, that you were experiencing oneness, divine love, the universe. And for those of you who have brought journals, I would like you to start by writing, "Dear Beloved," or you could say, "Dear God," or "Dear Universe." And I'd like you to finish this sentence, and if you're not writing, just finish the sentence silently. I knew there was more to life than these 5 senses when. I absolutely knew there was more to this life than these 5 senses when. And I'm just going to give you about a minute to sit with this. And the writing rules are there's no wrong answer. What's more important is that you touch that space. What did it look like? What did it feel like? Where were you? Was there something that triggered it? Maybe the birth of your child. Maybe the death of a loved one. I knew there was more to these 5 senses when and it may be that you just write keywords. I'm going to ask you to just finish. You can, and please continue writing this on your own at home. But I want to give you one more start line that you can work on. I know the universe responds to me because I know the universe hears me because I know God hears me because. How do you know? Okay, I'd like to hear a few. I know the universe responds to me because because I chose to come back to life, and I did. I know the universe responds to me because. Just speak it out. Answered prayer. You feel joy in every cell. I am a divine being of God's pure light. So just kind of stay with that. So what we're doing here is we're creating the space to anchor in these moments, because if we truly are in utero right now and we are birthing into the Christ consciousness, then we need to anchor and create space for this. And I know that we spend so much time in the beta world and the beta consciousness because we're busy. There's lots of things that we have to do. So I want to encourage you to bring a journal with you so that we can spend more time doing this while we're in our outer sanctuary and touching into the inner sanctuary. We have busy schedules, and so did Jesus. And he took time to leave the crowds, to leave the noisy thoughts behind, and to go to a higher place. And so did Buddha when he sat under the Bodhi tree. In silence, we begin to slow down the brain waves from beta to alpha to theta. And that's when creativity steps in. That's when images appear, like Salvador Dali had, or not. The truth is, we are moving forward. We are awakening. We are birthing the Christ consciousness. We saw it in the approval of gay marriage. We see it when compassion and love and being able to see things from others' perspective, others' perception and perspective becomes one of the first things that we do. So, thank you. Amen.